Hello, Andrew Perker here, bringing you a video reply to some of the questions you have sent in via email. You're basically asking whether my images, which were taken between 2008 and 2014, are genuine. I have absolutely no hesitation to inform you via this video link that everything that has been shown to you so far, and what I will show you again, is absolutely 100% genuine. There is no Photoshop manipulation, there's no sort of Photoshop additive, so nothing's been added to the photographs themselves. Now the only thing that's been done is things like sharpness, contrast and brightness. That's the only thing that's been sort of altered. Simply this is just for the purpose of enhancement, and so you can get a better visual clarity of what we're trying to look at. Okay, so but there's no foul play whatsoever. This is my 100% assurance to you all that there's absolutely no foul play whatsoever. Okay, originally what I wanted to do was to put all the events onto one video, but unfortunately due to the length of all the events, basically because there was just so many that we've managed to capture, the video will be just far too long. So I have decided to split each individual event into its own session. If I can add more to it, then I will do. But it's probably best this way, so that way we can sort of concentrate on each individual event a little bit more. Anyway, what I'd like to do is take you back to a location called Ogbourne Down at the Smithies Plantation. Now we went there on the 27th of July, just before we arrived just before 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now the weather conditions were extremely good, so it was nice and sunny, nice and warm. Now I'd like to just touch on a little bit about the weather conditions, and the importance of that. Perhaps it's worth taking into consideration that everything that's been captured, okay, was always in sort of decent weather conditions. So things like, if you have anything, days which are overcast, days which were kind of rainy, then we had no luck at all. So weather plays an important factor. Is something to take into consideration. Okay, so the majority of sightings, of course, were also captured during the day. Okay, they also do appear during the night time, but the majority always happen during the day. That's another thing that to take into consideration. Anyway, let me just take you to the first image. This was taken kind of from the hillside. So as you come in from Barbary Castle end, this is the first visual appearance that you have. It was a lovely, nicely made crop circle, like the Mayan type theme, which attracted an awful lot of people. Obviously because of the controversial year that was approaching at the time. Yeah, it was really nicely made. But we'll talk about crop circles at another stage, another time. But anyway, so the first initial photograph that was taken, to give you the information as well here, was 14:59, so just a minute before 3 o'clock. And what we basically have here is, if I just zoom in to the first anomaly that was noticed, is this white speck of kind of light sitting there in the tree. Now this could be, of course, a bird, could be a sign on the tree, it could be a piece of rubbish, if you like. So all these sort of things are taken into consideration when we sort of review the photographs. Okay, so rather than sort of jump into conclusion, everything is now taken into consideration. Okay, let's just move on slightly to the left. Now, if you look in this area here, okay, this is quite an interesting little anomaly here. Now you can see there is something kind of there poking out. It has a slightly different shade of green. Now it could indeed be part of the foliage, it could be part of the plantation there, it could be part of the plants in them. Yes, that's of course considered. But if we move in a bit closer, okay, it kind of gives you the appearance that it's something elongated, something like a sort of worm-like, and appears to have a facial feature. But this of course could be down to the pixelization of screen. This of course is taken into account. But do keep this particular section in mind. because in the next image it will actually change, and quite drastically as well. So okay, let's just move on to the next slide. Okay, let's just go back to the ball of light again, or the white object. Now I obviously said ball of light, and because I'm kind of now obviously seeing other images, I was trying to obviously show you that it probably was a ball of light. Again, here it is, sitting quite comfortably in a tree. Possibly a facial feature, but again, that could be down just to the actual pixelization on the screen. Okay, so let's just move away from that for the moment, and then move along back to the object that was in the actual plantation now. Now I think you might instantly see there that it's changed. So let's just zoom into that a little bit more. Okay, and now you can see that it's kind of much more of a blockier type object. It's much larger to what it was. Originally it was seen sort of coming out from behind the bush here, and now it's there. But what it is, I wouldn't even like to hazard a guess. It's the first kind of visual appearance that it gave me was that it was the sort of a front view of a snake's head. But you know, that's obviously over. Everything is open to interpretation. But it's there. You can see that it's changed. It's much more larger to what it was. So there's something completely different there now. Okay, keep that in mind as well. Keep this particular location in mind, because you will see that it. I will show you that has the object will eventually disappear out of view. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, slightly sort of skew with angle, this photograph, but let's just, so the only thing that I can actually sort of show you here is that the white ball of light seems to be still there. Now this is taken slightly from a different angle, so it sort of gives that appearance that now that it's now hiding behind a tree there. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next. Okay, now going back to the tree location again. Now that particular ball of white was positioned just about there, actually, just where the pointer is, but now it's gone. Okay, so now if you look further up the field, this could be it there. So it's obviously moved away, and it's actually sort of obviously now moving on to somewhere else. But let's just go back to this little location here as well. You will now see that the green object is now gone as well. Okay, so whatever that was, it has now moved on. Okay, right, let's move on to the next slide, and going back to the ball of light again. Ball of light is now sort of obviously now retreating, is now disappearing further up the field. Now there it is. Now I think people who have actually sort of visited Wiltshires, you know, quite a few of you have actually obviously experienced these particular balls of light. You have seen them, you have captured them on camera, on photographs, etc. They seem to be sort of the size of a football, and they are generally white. But what they are, what controls them, is of course a mystery. But they are seen quite frequently in Wiltshire. I don't know if anybody remembers a gentleman called Pierre Beek. Just to bring up an image of him, just to remind you, it's the gentleman on the left hand side here. Pierre captured some extraordinary footage below Milk Hill of 3 of these particular balls of light sort of flying in formation and disappearing into the grain, into the crop. Extraordinary footage, especially if you see it in high definition, which I had the pleasure of watching it myself in high definition. Brilliant piece of footage, but unfortunately for some reason it's just didn't receive the attention, and here we are sort of on the actual YouTube, only 581 views. Really quite a shame, and it could be because the quality is not the full high definition, but you can see here they are, these are sort of obviously in motion. So if you think back to the actual picture I just showed you, the pictures I've showed you, here, obviously these balls are retreating, That's exactly probably what it was, and here we are. Okay, so that's available on YouTube if you want to see that anyway. Anyway, back to Ogbourne Down itself. Okay, so those particular balls of light were probably, as you've just seen on there very quickly. As you can see, here it is. Now it's in a different field, disappearing. Okay, let's move on to the next anomaly. Now this is quite a curious one as well. It sort of appears and disappears again. Right. Okay, so here we are, just a sort of normal scene in the crop circle, people visiting, people meditating, probably quite unaware that various things are happening around them. So now this is quite interesting. This lady's obviously sitting directly in front of this avenue here, probably quite unaware that there is an object of some nature right at the very end. There we go. Now, it is out of the ordinary. I would, this kind of does look a little bit odd, and it doesn't seem to sort of fit into the shading of the crop at all. I might have a possible explanation on this one, but I'm not going to go into it for the moment. But I will kind of mention it in another video where it will be relevant. So I'll bring this image back up again when I want to discuss this particular object, what I think it might be. But anyway, quite unknowingly to these people, of course, that there was something else unto me, that there was something else lurking in the avenues of the crop circle here. Okay, so let me, just before I jump to that particular one, let me just show you that the item is gone. No, sorry about the skew with image, but I used to take photographs in the pole shop on a 16-foot pole, and at the time I did not have a remote clicker. I had to always set the camera to 10-second timer, so there were several occasions where I just didn't get the camera into a straight position fast enough. But anyway, just to show you, so again, here's the lady sitting there, and this is the avenue here, I believe. Yeah, that's the one she's looking at. Now there is some shading there, but the actual sort of object that was seen earlier it doesn't seem to be there anymore. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the rather interesting, rather intriguing image of whatever was lurking in the background there. Okay, so whether that particular object had anything to do with this particular entity is, of course, we'll probably never know. But anyway, this particular image is a raw image. This has been nothing done to it whatsoever. There's been no contrast, brightness added to it. It's basically is as taken. So basically, it's got as you can see, there's nothing sort of unusual about it. The dark shading is always, everything appears to be in order as it should be. There's nothing kind of which sticks out. But then, if you kind of look to the top of the crop circle, one of the sort of the sad face part of the crop circle, there seems to be something lurking in one of its avenues there. Now, when you first sort of look at it, it kind of gives you an appearance that it is a small character, a kind of a humanoid type character with humanoid features. As a head, appears to have a head, appears to have a couple of dark eyes, black eyes, seems to be very dark skinned. Okay, so this is the raw image. This has been nothing added, nothing adjusted. So this does not, basically it just does not fit into the rest of the shading in the crop. So okay, so he's sitting there quietly, appears to be crouching. Now that's interesting actually. It seems to be hiding. So does this indicate that it would have been visual to the naked eye if he kind of sort of stood up and say, "Hi, I'm here," you know, kind of waved his arms. So that would have been curious, because why would he have the intention? I say he, a being of some nature. Why this particular character is crouching? So obviously he is showing that he is hiding. Okay, so I'll take you to the slightly sort of more enhanced image. You can see quite clearly, you can sort of make out that he's there. Okay, so let's okay, this is now just a bit of contrast added to it, a bit of brightness and a bit of sharpness, and just to sort of give us a little bit of a closer look on this little chap. Okay, here we are. So quite an elongated head. It would appear to quite have a large forehead, black eyes. The nasal feature is quite flat, I would say. This is obviously sort of like you can see the sort of the roundness of the head, but with sort of the chin area. And this, but the side of it could possibly be his arm, which appears to be, I would probably say, you know, sort of quite a muscular feature. Okay, so now if you consider the size of the crop as well, so if I just pan back that a little bit, now this crop is approximately, I would say, knee high, so anything about between 2.5 feet to maybe even 3 feet at its sort of tallest. So that would sort of indicate that these particular characters are quite small. Okay, so dark skinned. In fact, I'll bring that in as close as I can, so hopefully you can sort of get as close a look as you possibly can. Quite a distinctive looking character. Now what I'll try and do, keep him there for the moment, this is obviously try and increase a bit of brightness. Now this is exactly what we've done to the images, that's it. Okay, take that back a little bit to give you a more distinctive appearance of the actual character himself. I say himself, could be a female, but obviously that's something probably we will never know. Okay, bit of contrast, or lack of all, down a bit of contrast, and he's there. It's, you know, I think without doubt, this is whether it is sort of an extraterrestrial type being or not. It's something which is open to question. So he was quite quietly lurking there. This was obviously not visual to the naked eye. We didn't spot this little chap. This was obviously just visual. It sort of appeared when I was looking through the photographs. I noticed he was there. Okay, let's move on. I'll just before I do that, I'll give you just a sort of actually the blown up section and the sort of the section where it's visible on the actual raw image itself. So here is in the background, and this is just a sort of obviously zoomed in version. Okay, what it is, where it comes from, again, it's open to interpretation. Now, I'll take this. There is a little story which I don't want to sort of elaborate too much on it, because it's not my story. It didn't happen to me. So it happened to a gentleman called Roy Lerond. This is the gentleman here. He's a Norwegian filmmaker, documentary maker. He was making a crop circle documentary for 4 years, in fact. And while he was filming in this particular crop circle, he had a couple of instances there where his camera was toppled on 2 occasions, damaging the camera in the end, creating quite an expensive repair bill. So whether something pushed his camera over, you know, that's what it would appear, is unknown. But I think Roy himself would probably tell the story better than I can, because obviously he was there. But it's a shame that this particular story was not actually included in the documentary, which probably would have been of importance, and the two, the actual sort of little beings being in a crop, and the other sort of visual entities, you know, may have possibly had something to do with it, but that's speculation, of course. But it's so yes, if Roy is actually watching this presentation, then you know, do consider releasing this, Roy, because I think obviously there could be a connection. I hope you will. I hope you actually will sort of eventually release it, even if you just do a, you know, a presentation of this sort of nature like I'm doing now. Okay, just when we were leaving this location, so we sort of packed up and decided to go, something begun to happen at the very top of this copse here. Now this was quite a curious little incident, because looking at this particular copse, this section, just this section here, there appeared to be some sort of energy disturbance. It was like sort of electromagnetic fields being, you know, interrupted in some way, or they were quite visual. So the actual sort of trees in the background, and everything became distorted. So it's almost like, if I can explain to you, if you remember the old TV sets where you had to tune the channels in, you know, to get the squiggly lines and a lot of sort of, you know, static interference. It was that kind of thing. It was kind of basically as if something was trying to come through, something was trying to lock on or come through another dimension into this earthly dimension. And so this kind of like stopped us in our tracks, and we started looking, and obviously sort of noticed that there was something appearing in the actual top of the copse there. And all of a sudden this character appears. Okay, this is the sort of initial photo that was taken of something again, you know, something very distinctive, something sort of very humanoid type looking, got a head, got a shoulders, etc. Looks like it's got an arm. And this particular character was also jittery, as if it still didn't sort of come through fully. It was almost very, very animated, sort of jumping, sort of jittering from left to right. And it sort of, at one stage, it sort of it jumped so much, it sort of appeared in this location here, but eventually kind of settled and stopped in this spot here. Now this event took kind of, well, you know, minute and a half at tops, not much more than that. So it was kind of like a moment of hesitation, you know, when you're kind of looking, you're watching, but then you got to think, got to grab the camera. So basically, this is the initial image I've taken. So okay, let's have a kind of a more enhanced version of what this particular character may look like. This one probably. Okay, now quite a lot of pixelization on this, but I think we can clearly see that it has that sort of, you know, obviously it appears to have a head, two black eyes again, you know, quite possibly a mouth there, shoulders, and obviously has a torso of some sort, quite possibly an arm there, and appears to be either sitting on something, whatever this may be, or was holding it, one of the two. Okay. Now this particular sort of smudgy area here, okay, is I would say is a sphere as well, because when I present other events to you, you will find that for some reason a sphere seems to be always present by these entities. Okay, so it's just a few little points which are sort of taken into consideration anyway. Yeah, so this particular character was only sort of visible, as I said, for no more than a minute and a half. Now, so at this particular point, I kind of think, you know, quick, grab the telephoto lens. I try to put a better lens on the camera to try and get a bit of a close-up shot of it. But quite an extraordinary thing that happened. It's almost like as if something just instantly sort of almost like smacks you in the back of the head and said, whoa, 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 hang on, it says you've seen enough. That, you know, what you've seen is enough. So I kind of then looked towards the copse, and you could see that was slowly disappearing. Okay, the actual character was almost vanishing. So anyway, so this is just sort of the other image taken, and you can just see it sort of starting to disappear, and it completely disappeared after that. So it was completely gone. Now something else is happening on the edge here. Now I'm not really sure what's going on here, but it in another image, in the previous image, this wasn't there. So there's something obviously just seems to be sort of hovering there. Okay, it does seem to be elevated, but again, what this could be, it's open to questions, open to speculation. Okay, so so yeah, this particular character disappeared, and that was it. He was gone. Now, there was some images sent to me a couple of weeks after this sort of crop circle was made of, I'm not sure who actually took this, but it does, this person I think claimed that it was something unusual that they managed to capture in a crop circle, something moving around. Now, what this is, I mean, the first sort of visual appearance, sort of, you could say it was probably a bird perhaps, but this appears to be a shadow rather than an object on the edge, so and it's given that sort of like a pheasant type appearance. Okay, let's sort of move on. You can see that the actual, whatever this is, it seems to have changed in shape. Okay, there's just another. So these particular photographs are not mine. They've been sent in by somebody else. Okay, so now this is quite curious. If I just bring that in a little bit more. Again, it's very, very hard to say, try and sort of describe what it is, but it does appear to be something there, whether it's mechanical, whether it's part of the actual crop, or whether it is a bird or not. It's really, really difficult to say there, but it does show that there's something unusual there. Okay, let's just there's another couple more. Again, it just seems to be sort of quite blobbish there, but whatever that is, again, it does seem to be quite unusual. Anyway, so that's pretty much it for this particular event. But it just shows that things do happen. But if you go out with intention to capture these particular entities on camera, then I think in some cases all you have to do is just ask. Really, as long as you have a true intention in trying to sort of obviously find out about these things, then I do believe these things actually do respond for you. There are sort of many ways of looking at this. I have seen people going out with cameras, first time they've seen people capture stuff, and they go out thinking they're going to get all these entities on camera. When they come home, they realise they caught nothing, and then all of a sudden say, well, hang on, that person who did catch these things on camera must be lying. Not so, and that's not the case. You really, really have to sort of put out that frequency, that intention from the mind and from the heart, that you truly want to sort of discover what's going on, and you really want to begin to try and interact with these things, and and perhaps this is what we're doing. We actually are interacting. Maybe perhaps these designs are like a giant Ouija board in effect. When we sort of walk in there, we use these particular sort of designs as a sort of a point of interaction. We kind of it's almost like a stimulation to the mind, where you're producing extra frequencies. Your mind is working overtime. People do pray in them, people do meditate in them, people play all sorts of instruments. They chant, they hold hands, and they're emitting quite an awful lot of energy. So whether all this is kind of attracting these things it's like almost like being in a Ouija board. You're kind of asking, is anybody out there, and then bingo, something appears. So anyway, as much as I'd like to give you a little bit more insight of what's been captured, I'm as much as in the dark as anybody else, but these particular things were there. They were there for, as I said, where they come from is of course open to question, but they were there. Without doubt, they were there, and I'm just sort of, I feel quite privileged that I managed to see, especially the one which is coming through at the top of the copse, coming through as if it's coming through from another dimension. So yeah, I think it's to experience something like that, and it's absolutely wonderful. And I hope anyone who's watching this, if you want to go out, if you're going out this particular season, then look out for things. Don't just look at the crop circle. Look around you. Take a lot of photographs and take them in sequence. Put your camera to multi-shoot and then just shoot multiple images. So that way you'll be able to sort of examine each change, if there's a change actually happening in the photograph itself. Okay, thank you for watching. Until the next one, which I hope to do as soon as possible. Okay, bye for now. Thank you. Hello, Andrew Perker here, bringing you a video reply to some of the questions you have sent in via email. You're basically asking whether my images which were taken between 2008 and 2014 are genuine. I have absolutely no hesitation to inform you via this video link that everything that has been shown to you so far, and what I will show you again, is absolutely 100% genuine. There is no Photoshop manipulation, there's no sort of Photoshop additive, so nothing's been added to the photographs themselves. Now the only thing that's been done is things like sharpness, contrast and brightness. That's the only thing that's been sort of altered. Simply this is just for the purpose of enhancement, and so you can get a better visual clarity of what we're trying to look at. And what we basically have here is, if I just zoom in to the first anomaly that was noticed, is this white speck of kind of light sitting there in the tree. Now this could be, of course, a bird. Could be, could be a sign on the tree. It could be a piece of rubbish, if you like. So all these sort of things are taken into consideration when we sort of review the photographs. Okay, so rather than sort of jumping to conclusion, everything is now taken into consideration. Okay, let's just move on slightly to the left. Now, if you look in this area here, okay, this is quite an interesting little anomaly here. Now you can see there is something kind of there poking out. Okay, so but there's no foul play whatsoever. This is my 100% assurance to you all that there's absolutely no foul play whatsoever. Okay, originally what I wanted to do was to put all the events onto one video, but unfortunately due to the length of all the events, basically because there was just so many that we've managed to capture, the video will be just far too long. So I have decided to split each individual event into its own session. If I can add more to it, then I will do. But it's probably best this way, so that way we can sort of concentrate on each individual event a little bit more. Anyway, what I'd like to do is take you back to a location called Ogbourne Down at the Smithies Plantation. Now we went there on the 27th of July, just before we arrived just before 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now the weather conditions were extremely good, so it was nice and sunny, nice and warm. Now I'd like to just touch on a little bit about the weather conditions, and the importance of that. Perhaps it's worth taking into consideration that everything that's been captured, okay, was always in sort of decent weather conditions. So things like, if you have anything, days which were overcast, days which were kind of rainy, then we had no luck at all. So weather plays an important factor is something to take into consideration. Okay, so the majority of sightings, of course, were also captured during the day. Okay, they also do appear during the night time, but the majority always happen during the day. That's another thing that to take into consideration. Anyway, let me just take you to the first image. This was taken kind of from the hillside. So as you come in from Barbary Castle end, this is the sort of the first visual appearance that you have. It was a cleverly, nicely made crop circle, like the Mayan type theme, which attracted an awful lot of people. Obviously because of the controversial year that was approaching at the time. Yeah, it was really nicely made. But we'll talk about crop circles at another stage, another time. But anyway, so the first initial photograph that was taken, to give you the information as well here, was 14:59, so just a minute before 3 o'clock.